Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, how you doing? Fade to Black. Today is Monday, March 24th, 2025. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. Yeah, God, man, I've been doing that for years. It never gets any less exciting for me because I know another show's about to start and you can help support what we do around here. Just get yourself Fade to Black t-shirt. You know what to do. 2 links, 2 shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get a Game Changer membership. Just order a shirt, order both shirts. Everything is autographed. Everything includes shipping. All right, here we go. Kicking off a brand new week here on Fade to Black. Tonight, Kelly Chase is here. It's about time. She's got a new docuseries out. It's called Cosmosis. We're going to talk about that and much more tonight because it is UFO week here on Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, Jacques Vallée is back with us. He's got a new book out, Forbidden Science number 6. Then Wednesday night, it is the return, Isaac Arthur. Right. E.T. Megastructures with the physicist. And then Thursday night, Ray Hernandez is here. And we are going to be talking about the Beyond UFOs academic study. And that is going down Thursday night. So we got a big week here, UFO week on Fade to Black. Now, I've got 5 major events coming up. That's right. Starting this week. Yeah, this weekend, I am going to be hosting Rise of the Guardians, March 29th and 30th, 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. After that, I head to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo. And that is May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2025, Delavan, Wisconsin, Delavan Lake at the resort. Then I come back out here for Contact in the Desert. And that is May 29th through June 2nd in Palm Springs, California. And then I head south to Peru with Brian Forrester for the Inca Celebration of the Sun. And that is June 17th through the 27th, 2025. Now, we have 2 tours this year. This one is sold out. If you go to the website, maybe there's a cancellation, something last minute, but we have another tour coming up in November. And then after that, I head out to the East Coast for the Psy Games, the Psychic Olympics. And that is August 1st through the 3rd, 2025 in Charlottesville, Virginia. All right. The links for everything are below. All right. Brand new UFO week. Yeah. And kicking that off tonight, Kelly Chase. Kelly Chase is here. She's got a new docuseries out. It's called Cosmosis. We'll be talking about that. And now she is not only a host and a filmmaker, now a TV series filmmaker and a documentarian. But she has been out there for a long time, and I've been a huge fan. And I don't know why we have waited so long to have her on the show, but I'm a big fan. She is amazing, and she was the host of the UFO Rabbit Hole. That's right. And that was like number 1 on Spotify, I think. She's going to come on and go, no, it wasn't number 1, but we were doing pretty good. But yeah, the UFO Rabbit Hole, her new podcast is called Cosmosis. And the new docuseries, we have links for everything below over on our website and throughout social media. With that, excited. I can be a fanboy. I want to welcome Kelly Chase. She's right there. Kelly, wow.
Oh, Jimmy, I'm so thrilled to be here, man. You're such a legend, and I'm so glad to be on the show today. Thanks for having me.
Man, you know, I have been following you, and I remember listening to the Rabbit Hole going, man, her voice is so good. she's such a professional. She just does this right. And yeah. So it goes both ways. So welcome to the program. Now, Kelly, you get the first time guest disclaimer. Yeah. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
Okay. Kelly, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. Where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. Now, you have to accept so
Love
we
it.
can move on.
I accept.
Really?
I
Really?
do, Jimmy.
Oh, man. I thought you were going to be difficult, Kelly.
Oh, no, not me.
With you, we're going to be talking about Cosmosis a lot tonight, but let's back this up. You and please, I swear on everything that I take this the wrong way. Okay, opening question. You take it the wrong way. You don't look like what people expect when they are picturing somebody that's about to talk to them about UFOs. You know this, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's maybe my secret superpower. I'm just myself. I always say, I'm just Kelly from Ohio, and I hope that makes me relatable. And yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Well, let's talk about that. You're on the East Coast in Ohio, in Cleveland. Is it okay if I say where you're
Oh, sure,
from?
yeah, people know where I am. Mhm.
Okay, all right. Is the UFO subject now a typical thing uh in Cleveland?
Surprisingly, it's getting there. There's actually one of the oldest UFO, like the longest running UFO clubs, is in Cleveland, which I found out
That's right.
recently, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it's surprising how many people talk about it around here now.
Do you feel we were talking about this before the show, and I think it's a very important point for the listeners. Look, it's very simple. The people that listen to this show and that follow you and I, and they're a part of this community, are here for very passionate, personal reasons. And they can't talk about this stuff, or they haven't been able to. What they need is the support from people like you and I, where they can maybe feel a little freer, right? To go out and discuss it. Friends, family, coworkers, school, what have you. But you must have gone through the exact same thing. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always been kind of interested in this stuff, especially when I was a kid, but I never talked about it a lot. But then a few years ago, when I got into this hardcore and then literally left my corporate job to do this full time, I surprised a lot of people in my life, obviously. But I will say, I give my family and friends a gold star for not always totally understanding what is going on with me, but for giving me the room to do it. I'm really grateful. I know that's not how it goes for everybody. And, I think it helps that I've always been a little bit comfortable being a weirdo. So I tolerate it
Were
a
you-
little better.
yeah, it's totally cool. Were you surprised about with the success from Rabbit Hole?
Oh, absolutely. I started the UFO rabbit hole just for myself because I was going down the rabbit hole, and I'm somebody who processes things with words and with writing and with talking, and so it felt to me like to just get my thoughts straight. I wanted to get this stuff down, and the podcast, I'd had a few podcasts before this. I'd been podcasting since like 2010. Nothing that got anywhere close to where the UFO rabbit hole went. And I remember telling my husband at the beginning that if like 30 people a week listened to it, I would keep doing it. So I was I was shocked when it did seem that there was an audience for it.
When I was in school for broadcast and journalism, right? I'm in school, and we had these. I'll make this really quick. And we had these professionals come in and teach segments of different courses, right? And they would be in adjunct professors or whatever they call them, for a week or two, and then there. And this one time, we had a reporter from CNN, and I'm not going to say his name. And this is what happens. So he's teaching what he's teaching, and it was about working with a news director and accepting or presenting story ideas. Okay. All right. And so I said this, raise my hand. What if you had a story about UFOs? And he like looks at me and he goes, what do you mean? I said, like the story, photographs, a video and witnesses. How would you go about that? He goes, I wouldn't. I go, what do you mean? He goes, UFOs are the kiss of death in journalism.
Oh man.
Start and stop your career right there. And I knew right then what I wanted to do. I knew it. I was like, okay, sounds like nobody's doing it. I mean, I knew about Art Bell, and maybe back then George Norrie, but you know what I mean? There was nobody doing it, and it's what I wanted to do. It was just so funny. He was like, I wouldn't talk to my news director about that. I like my job.
I love
Yeah,
that.
pretty funny. And now, right? Now all the media wants these UFO stories. It's crazy. What a crazy world we live in now, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think about it all the time because I've only been doing this for the last few years when the stigma is, more lifted and it's suddenly in the media. I mean, I got to say, to be doing it back when you were doing it, and so many of the people who really founded this field, going back to you were talking about Jacques Vallée's coming on tomorrow. Gosh, you had to be a real maverick and a real independent thinker, I think, to do this stuff. Really pre 2017, even. I'm astounded that people had the guts for it, and I think people in my generation need to recognize that what people sacrificed who came before us.
What do you make of the UFO rock stars now? Because before the UFO rock stars were just in our community. They weren't known outside of the community. Maybe, okay, Giorgio Tsoukalos, but he was a rock star because of his hair, not necessarily, right? The content and Ancient Aliens. He's a friend of mine, man. I just kind of said the wrong thing, but because he's a great, great, great person. He's a beautiful soul. But you know what I'm saying? Today we have UFO rock stars. What do you make of that? Is it ego driven, or do you feel like they really have something to bring to the table?
I mean, I will say, a lot of these people have been putting in the work for a really long time. And, I never begrudge anybody making a living and making a good living. It's something that they're pouring their heart and soul into. I mean, obviously, I, like anyone else in the field, has some concerns about just like hero worship and the ways that that can sometimes skew the narrative, just because like nobody's perfect. Everybody, I mean, more of these people and you know them better than I do. These are just people, right? And so at the end of the day, we don't want to go too far into that. That definitely has its pitfalls, but I also think that there's a lot of people who have been elevated who have worked really, really hard for it. And so, it's just about finding that balance and just trying to keep our heads on straight, remembering the people are people.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that the UFO community is used to, if you've been, part of the community for a while, 10, 20 years before 2017, what we have been used to is these huge mountains and valleys that we would go through. I mean, big breaking story, huge things. And the MJ-12 documents and Bob Lazar when he first came out, and Roswell, and these huge, the alien autopsy film, right? And and then it's a hoax, or then it's and we go through these things up and down, up and down, up and down. And in 2017, because of To the Stars and To the Stars Academy, and what that caused with the Nimitz and everything else, and all of the UFO program at the Pentagon and the headlines with the New York Times, suddenly the attention is outside of the UFO community. It's bigger, it's into the masses. And so that brought in an influx of people that were very interested in this subject, but they have always been, but never had a reason to jump in. But they thought that was disclosure.
Right.
And here in our community, it's like, man, this is just Tuesday. We've been through this before. And all of those people, Kelly, that came in to this, you may have been one of them
Oh
because of
yeah, absolutely.
2017. Yeah. Um, to find out in very short order that things are not what they seem. And then what ended up happening? TSA goes belly up. Think of those millions of Blink 182 fans that jumped into the UFO community, and then TTSA goes away. But we are used to it in this community. Those out there that were new to it got a pretty good taste of what it's like to be part of ufology.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I definitely learned my lesson with that one. I know early on, like a lot of the people who've been in the community longer who would say like basically what you're saying, and I'd be like, ah, no, you old curmudgeon, this is it.
Right.
You're just too pessimistic. And then, my views have obviously really changed as I've watched TTSA go from, gonna reverse engineer a UFO to, from what I can tell now, they're a t-shirt shop on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Hero to zero.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you jaded now?
Um, I mean, I will definitely say that I won't say that I'm jaded because I'm someone who has a lot of optimism and I'm somebody who I'm grateful for the lesson, right? And also it was a really fun ride. I've definitely become really disillusioned with disclosure in general, but I think that that's a good thing because the thing that it turned me back to was just ufology itself and just recognizing that there's always kind of this sideshow of will they, won't they, with, the military industrial complex and all the secrecy and all of that. But underneath all of that, there is something real that's going on here. And you're never going to get the answer from them. But also, UFOs are a part of our reality. Like they can't lock that up in a bunker. They can't hide it from us. And if you're interested in learning about this thing and learning about what it is, you don't need anybody's permission. You can do it yourself. And there's a really cool community of people out here doing the work. And I'm actually kind of relieved to step out of that circus and just focus on the work and just focus on ufology and not so much on disclosure.
Yeah. Never post on social media. That's the lesson.
Yes, if I could find a
Never
way.
comment. Never comment. A wise man once told me in media many years ago, don't read your email. Don't comment ever. And
Very
I
smart.
didn't get it. Yeah, I didn't get it at the time. Best advice ever. Best advice ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's I just do my own thing and you're just better off for it. Um today staying on the subject. A lot of whistleblowers. A lot of whistleblowers. What do you make of that? And the second question on the back of that is suddenly the government is our friend who spent
Right?
decades, calling us tinfoil hat crazy, uh, hallucinating, all these things that they said about our community. Now they are our friends. And dovetail with that, we have all these whistleblowers from the government surfacing. What's your take?
Yeah, well, since it's just you and I talking on the couch, um,
Yeah. Yep.
I'll tell
Yep.
you what I
Yep.
actually think, but I usually just save for the group chat. But, you know, first of all, I don't think most of these people are whistleblowers. I don't think that they live up to the term. I think that, when you look in the private sector or the public sector historically, and you look at people who are actually blowing the whistle, I mean, look at Edward Snowden. Like people who they have to flee the country. They don't normally then get a cushy contract working for like some other department. They're not still working for someone who's whistleblowing on the Department of Defense doesn't typically get a job still working within the Department of Defense. And
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and so
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know that and 95% of what we've gotten so far, and that's me assuming that there's 5% I don't know, um, of what we're hearing from these people is coming from their DOPSer. So this is stuff that has been approved by the Department of Defense for them to say. So, I mean, at the very least, I think we can say that they're the best behaved whistleblowers of all time. They don't color outside the lines. And yeah, I find it to be really interesting. I think that we're in this time period where, like you were talking about, from 2017 on, there's a ton of new people in the field. They're very excited about disclosure. They're very invested in the narrative. They want to believe that this is going somewhere desperately. And I say that as being somebody who was a part of that group. And I think it's really easy to get lost and also to not know your history, because so much of the media, like people are getting so much of their information online in this echo chamber and not really knowing the history of the field. There's no community that should be more suspicious of the intelligence community, more suspicious of the Department of Defense than the UFO community. And yet somehow they've twisted everybody around to the point that we're like, if it's not coming from them, then it's not legit information and you should ignore it. And that blows my mind that we've gotten to this place. And yeah, I find it fascinating, honestly.
Yeah. When you go, and I try to stress this, Kelly, as much as I can. I probably mention it on every show. One of my favorite things to do, and one of the best resources for me personally, is the old UFO books.
Yes.
Go get something from the 50s, get something from the 60s, and go get a Don Kehoe book. Go get a Lenny Stringfield book. Go and read, and I have them all, and I read them constantly, and including Dolan's UFOs and the National Security State, Volume 1. Volume 2 too is amazing, but Volume 1 deals with the earlier cases. Go and read that, and then you kind of have the ability to look through the lens and get the lens effect, where you can look around the government, you can look around the media, you can look around the distortion and the chatter that we have, and see how this has been dealt with historically. And so now we're supposed to suddenly just go, I trust him now. No, it's simply not that kind of party. You need to squinty eyes, squinty eyes on everything. And if you do that, you're closer to reality than if you jump into the deep end of the pool.
Yeah. I mean, I heard Valet say one time that any case after 1975, you should be a little extra cautious about. And I took that to heart. And anytime I go to a used bookstore, I go find their UFO books, and I will buy any book that was published before 1975. It doesn't matter if I've heard of the person. It doesn't matter, and I've also gotten really into going back to, the old, like a lot of work was being done in like magazines, which is, I'm a millennial. I'm like, what's a magazine? But
Right.
yeah, and like essays, you can find like Keel writing essays and stuff in these old magazines, and the stuff that's in there is insane and it'll blow your mind. And so I try to look to the past as much as possible.
There is a question that I put out there a lot, which is, if you know somebody's name, do they have the secrets about UFOs?
Mm.
And it's a very important question. If you know their name, do they have the secrets? So what do you think of that? If you know somebody's name, right?
Yeah.
You've talked to them. They're, you know what I mean? You've
Mhm.
seen you've seen their, does that person know the secrets? What do you think?
I don't think so. And I've made that point as well. And I think it's a fantastic point. I think about something that really struck me early on when I was doing research was, Diana Pasulka said to me that Hal Puthoff would love to know what Tyler, from who we know as, Tim Taylor, from her book, what, he would love to know what Hal Puthoff would know. But then Tim Taylor he seems to not totally know what's going on either. He's searching in archives and all of that. So, I mean, and I think you're right. I think that the forward facing part of this is just one layer of it, and the onion goes much, much, much deeper. And I think the people that we think of as insiders are every bit as much on the outside as almost everybody else.
Yeah. And I have always wanted to, okay, So I'll just make something up. It's a story we've heard 100 times, 1,000 times. So yeah, man, I arrived at the facility and it was surrounded by armed guards, and there was a saucer in the middle that was being propped up, and it was just sitting there. Okay, stop, freeze frame, right? Cut. I want to hear from those armed guards.
Right.
I don't want to hear from a physicist. I don't want to hear from the witness that was there. Who's that guy? And why haven't they come forward? And I go and compare that scenario to something like the Manhattan Project, which had 100, 200,000 people. And that was kept secret until that bomb dropped in Japan.
Right.
Right? And nobody, no. So can we keep secrets? Well, yes. And that includes the armed guards at the gates of Los Alamos. Right? They didn't, you know what I'm saying? So it is possible. But today, would we hear from some of those guards? You know, they're guarding facilities. I've got Lockheed up the street, right? Rumors of what they have there, the Wilson Davis document, right? Right next to my house. Nobody's talking.
Right.
Nobody's talking. And if you're going to keep something a secret, what would be a secret? Well, I would think UFOs. I would think that would be a secret, right?
Yeah.
Possession of a flying saucer. Yeah, I kind of think they could keep that under seal if they wanted to.
I think they absolutely can, because I think the other thing people don't think about a lot is that even the people who we think of as insiders, that they might, even if people who think they know something or they think they saw something, that it might not be what it appears to be. A lot of these classified, like black SAPs and all of that, black budget programs, they often have 6 to 7 times the budget to spend on security as they do on these like wildly expensive projects themselves. So I think we underestimate how deep it goes. There's this really incredible scene in the movie Mirage Men. And, there's this part where Richard Doty is talking about how he disinfoed Linda Moulton Howe. He's like, we brought her into this Air Force Base and we sat her down in this chair and we, handed her this folder. And then later on, he's talking about how he knows that what he knows is true. And he's like, they brought me into this Air Force Base and they sat me down in this chair and they gave me this folder. And it's just like, you think you got told the truth? Because probably you didn't. If it's need to know, then the people who are running the smoke screen for the program, I don't think those people need to know. In fact, it would be better if they didn't. And I think we're just up against like layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of secrecy. And like the Hall of Mirrors is wild.
I know Richard Doty. I know him well.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say this. There is nobody on this planet that you would want at dinner to tell you a wild ass story
Oh, I believe
than Richard
that.
Doty. Okay. I'm serious, man. You just wind them up and let them go. I have sat next to Richard doing shots, right? Okay, Richard, tell me another one, man. And I love that about him. But how much of it is true? Well, we know his name. That's the problem,
Right.
right? We know who he, and if that stuff that he shares with us, and they're great stories. He's the crazy ass uncle, right? That gets drunk at Thanksgiving and tells you some story. But if half of that stuff was true, he wouldn't be around.
Oh, for sure.
So, but it just goes back to the same point, over and over again. How effective are they at keeping the lid on this? Well, yeah, I would think pretty effective. Eventually, the dam's going to burst. And when the dam bursts, I don't know how it's going to happen. When the cat is out of the bag, what do you think? How is it going to happen?
I think it's going to be a lot more grassroots. I think we're kind of I think we are watching it happen, just not maybe in the way that people think. I think that It's really interesting to me, speaking of 2017, right? Like it seemed like there was some sort of maybe controlled disclosure, maybe starting to happen there. But at some point along the way, they've lost the thread. Like you can tell that there's that whatever started there, that there's various factions that are kind of warring with each other. And now I think that the fact that we've gone from like so little coming out and like drip, 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 and then all of a sudden you have all these other like whistleblowers coming forward, and all of a sudden it's abductions and it's mantids and it's the divine feminine and it's telepathy and it's like it's all of it, right? It tells me that they've lost track of it, that they've lost control of it, because now instead of holding back information, they're flooding the zone with information, which is kind of what you do when you lose hold of it. But I don't think that's necessarily where it's going to come from. I think that just people being more aware of it, people being more open about it, people being able to have conversations with people in their lives about the weird stuff that they've seen or the weird stuff that's happened to them has a snowball effect over time. And like they're also up against the clock of just science. Like every single day we're learning more things about consciousness, about the nature of
Are
reality,
you
about
telepathic? Are you telepathic?
no, that would be convenient.
How did you know my next question? Are you telepathic? Do you have the gift?
This is an earpiece from the deep state, and they're feeding me.
That's pretty crazy. Well, because I think that has everything to do with it.
Right.
Where science today, and you can point your finger at any number of reasons, James Webb Space Telescope, it doesn't matter. But our knowledge of the universe, well, first off, it's different today than it was last week. It's changing now constantly because science is crazy discoveries every day. But what we now know as fact is every star has at least one planet. And that's a lot of stars, man. Just in our Milky Way, it could be 1 trillion. Just in our Milky Way.
Yeah.
And so science knows this, and they keep pushing this out, exoplanets, this and that. The other day, they discovered for the first time carbon dioxide inside of an exoplanet's atmosphere. Light years away. You can, right? Well, people hear this. And now, because of science telling us about the amount of planets out there, because 1995, 30 years ago, right? One generation, millennial, one generation ago, there were 0 planets outside of our solar system. Now we know that there are at least 1 trillion times 1 trillion. That's a big number.
Yeah.
That's a big, 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 big number. So there's got to be life. And a lot of it is more advanced than us, and they surely are aware of planet Earth. That's why people are okay thinking about and discussing the UFO question today.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it goes, and it's only multiplying, right? Because on top of just how vast the known universe is, they're starting to tell us about these quantum computers that they have that can solve a problem that should take a computer like 10,000 years or something to solve, and they can do it in a couple of minutes, and they don't really know how it's doing it, but the only way they can really explain it is if it's using the computing power of itself across like
Parallel
many
worlds.
parallel realities.
Yeah. That's more science fiction than Star Trek on its best day.
Absolutely.
It's so funny. You can believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but quantum computers and parallel worlds is out of bounds.
Right?
It's that science fiction. It's that crazy. That's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It is. I mean, like quantum computers exist, and it's hard to believe that they could possibly. It doesn't make sense. They work, but we actually don't know how they work. And if there are these other computers and all of these multiple other thousands, millions, whatever of realities, who built them? There must be somebody over there that built them. So like the idea that we're not alone or that there's other stuff out there, it's becoming harder. And you can't even make a sound argument for us being alone anymore. It doesn't make sense.
If staying right here with quantum computers and ET, there is a connection. The interdimensional aspect of UFO sightings, I think, is a compelling one. Okay. Well, if a qubit for a quantum computer can connect with us from a parallel reality, then why not ghosts? Why not ET? Why not Bigfoot? I don't care. Stuff coming into our reality from somewhere else. If quantum computers are doing it, what's the difference with the UFO?
Well, exactly. And if we could figure out how to do it with a qubit, how much longer is it going to be till we can figure out how to go somewhere else? Right. And so, why would we assume that other things couldn't come here? It's like time travel. If anyone anywhere in the universe figures out time travel at any time, then time travel is already happening. Like, it's just, it works the same way.
Do you have any theories how they're getting here?
Um,
I know
I
you
think it's
think about
probably
it. We all think about it.
right. I mean, I think it's probably kind of a little bit of an all of the above because there are so many possibilities. Like there's got to be extraterrestrial civilizations out there. There also seems to be a really good case to be made for the existence of parallel realities, and there also, it seems like time travel, we're not quite sure. We haven't quite cracked that one yet. But if, like I said, if anybody anywhere figures it out, then it's already happening. And so, and then you even get to more of the crypto terrestrial stuff. We don't know what's going on down in the bottom of our oceans and down in Daytona Beach and actually up here in Cleveland. It was just on the news a couple weeks ago that people are seeing, and there were some really compelling videos of orbs like coming up out of, and it's crazy. I live on Lake Erie, and of course I never see anything, but like orbs coming up out of the lake. And there's I think the world is just much, much, much weirder than we've been led to believe. And we're just kind of now figuring it out.
Do you know Michael Lee Hill?
No,
Okay, write that down. Michael Lee Hill.
absolutely.
He's your neighbor. He lives
Oh,
up there,
okay.
and his videos. They've been on all the major TV shows,
Hmm.
but his stuff that he has filmed over Lake Erie, it's like
I've probably seen his
bananas.
videos. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I make that association to all of the other indigenous cultures from around the world that have been talking about this for thousands and for millennia. And it's like, wait a minute, today we call it drones over New Jersey, right? But 1,000 years ago, it was souls of our ancestors. You know what I mean? These
Totally.
orbs and stuff in the water, out of the water, in the skies. This has been going on forever, and today we're acting like this is something new when it's not, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think in some ways, after the Enlightenment, we got a little kind of drunk on our own supply. We figured some stuff out with science and we were like, it's all science now. We're not talking about that other stuff. But in some ways, it's not even like we're discovering this stuff for the first time. Like you're saying, we're rediscovering stuff that we used to know, but that we've just a while ago decided wasn't real for one reason or another.
Yeah. Now we call it disclosure. It's like, man,
Right.
get a grip. Well, what? Not talking bad about our community, everybody. I'm not. But the big D has definitely started to cloud the conversation. Everybody's got a different, what's your definition? Everybody's got a different definition and it means something different to them. What's your definition of disclosure?
I mean, like you said, it's tough. It's because everyone's got a different definition. I think that what a lot of people are imagining when they talk about disclosure is that the government is going to either through some like prolonged process or kind of like in a shock and awe campaign, just come out and tell us what's going on. And I think that's actually kind of ludicrous. I think that there's no the Department of Defense and the government, they're set up to mitigate risk and to protect themselves, to protect the entity that is the United States of America. And they don't do anything like it's kind of a truism in the military that you don't get into a fair fight, right? Because if you don't want to not know what the outcome is going to be. They don't do things if they're not like really pretty freaking sure that it's going to work. And
Mhm.
telling people this stuff, there's no way to mitigate that risk. There's no way to know 100% how that's going to land, what it's going to do to financial markets, what it's going to do to people's relationship to authority. And so I find it really hard to believe that they're going to tell us the truth. I think at some point they might tell us a good lie. Like at some point, if their back was up against the wall, that they might, and they felt like things were coming out, that they might tell us a partial truth or a lie of some kind to mitigate that risk. But for them to come out, the amount of lawsuits, the amount of like accountability that would have to be taken, just the fallout from that information, I can't imagine that they would ever actually do it. I
Well,
think we're
there may be something that forces their hand where all of that stuff gets put to the side. Let me ask you a question. It blew past me. Did Kelly Chase just drop an F-bomb on Fade to Black?
I hope I didn't.
I think you
Did I?
did. Yeah, I'm gonna divert that to the chat. Did Kelly just drop an F-bomb?
I might
She
have.
just let
I
that
thought
slip
we were
by.
on your couch, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, we are. We are. Don't tell your husband. But this is the thing. Whenever I bring up that kind of disclosure, people kind of get taken aback a little bit, maybe offended, because
Mhm.
I think for so many, disclosure can only mean one thing and one thing only: live from the Oval Office.
Right.
And I understand that. Oh, did you do it? Yeah, I think you did.
Well,
I think you did. I think you did.
you
I think you did. But
got the real Kelly Chase tonight.
what you know what I mean though? Because anything less than that, for those out there that have been ridiculed and teased and by their husband or wives or kids or co-worker, whatever, or the government itself, um, they need to be able to, after such type of disclosure, right? Some live or breaking into normal programming, right? And do that for the husband or the wife to turn around and go, see, I told you, right? Anything less than that, they can't say that,
Yeah.
and I think that's for so many, that's what they need. David Grush raising his right hand and going, yeah, man, I'll tell you where the flying saucers are. Right? That was pretty crazy.
That was
That's not,
crazy.
that's not good enough.
Yeah, it's crazy how the the goalpost keeps moving, right? And I think that a lot of people will find too is that even if we got what we wanted, that it would somehow be unsatisfying. Because I mean, first of all, with the political environment being what it is in this country, whatever president steps into the Oval Office and delivers that message, half of the country is not going to believe him. And so I think we're in a tough position there. But also like with AI and CGI and all of that stuff getting to where it is, what do you I don't know what real evidence would look like even for me, and I believe that it's real. But I try to think to myself like what could the government present to me, especially on television, that I'd be like uh, I believe it, no further questions. I don't know what it would take.
What about, okay, because that you do have telepathy. Because my next question would be, well, what is it that you would need to see? And you just answered that. But what if science, you know, uh, pulls the right card out in front of the government? Now, I've talked to a lot of astrophysicists, physicists, astronomers, where they have all told me the same thing, that they're not influenced by the government. And I go, what about the movie Contact? What about that scenario? No, it won't happen that way. Okay. The James Webb Space Telescope has the ability to see. What if they have it right? They image a planet with the lights on during nighttime, a city. You've seen what the Earth looks like at night, right?
Yeah.
We're alive. What if we image something like that? What if we get the real radio signal coming in, right? We have a three-body problem moment, and science turns around and makes the announcement ahead of the government. Do you trust that?
Um, to be honest, I don't think that they would give science. This is how cynical I've gotten. I don't think that they'd give them I don't think they'd give them a chance. I think that there are a shocking number of people in academia who have clearances. I don't think that you even get to work on a project like that without having some sort of, at least not at the top of it, without having some sort of a clearance. I'll leave that there. Um, And to be honest with you, I think that if they had, I actually wouldn't be surprised if they do have evidence of civilizations on other planets. But for the same reason I was talking about before, I just have a hard time believing that they're going to get on television and tell us. I don't think it's going to be like a great moment for humanity and we're going to figure this out together. They're going to figure it out on their own long before they tell us about it. And that's just I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but that's just my opinion.
Is a video like the most compelling, crazy video of all time? Is a video these days good enough?
For me, it's not, and people get really mad at me about that. People send me videos all the time and like, listen, I love to look at them, but I don't have any ability to judge that. And I don't think there are a ton of people on the planet who do. To me, still, the most compelling videos that I've seen, honestly, are compelling to me because they were shown to me and taken by people that I know personally and that I trust. Because at the end of the day, if I'm just looking at a video, I don't really know what I'm looking at. At least I don't. Like, I think there are people who do maybe have the ability to say something about a video, but to me, I'm just like, well, it looks very neat. I love seeing it. I just don't know. I can't say one way or another what it is, though.
Do you think, I just want your opinion. Do you think we're in contact?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we've maybe always been in contact to a
Right.
certain extent. I just think that contact doesn't necessarily look the way that we think that it would look. I think that we think of it in terms of, I think that if we were contacted by something that was a lot more like us, something that when you look at their planet at night, it looks like our planet at night. And they've got cities down there and they build ships and maybe they would come out here and be like, what are you guys doing? Or we want to take your stuff or, whatever reason they would have for coming over here. But I think we're probably in contact with a lot of different kinds of things that are maybe interdimensional or something like that that operate very differently than we operate and that it just doesn't look the way we think it looks. It's just because they're so different.
Here's a thought. I'm just going to put this out there before we hit the break, and I want your comment.
Mhm.
I would say, from the evidence presented that I know and how much I study cosmology and the universe, I spend way too much time on it. The majority of extraterrestrial intelligent civilizations, more advanced than us, don't live on a planet.
Mm,
They've had to leave their planet. Stars, suns, unstable things, uh, whatever. And eventually we have to leave this planet. Our sun is going to lose it. And so we have to go. We have to, 8 billion people are going to be put on ships and nobody's going to be living here. In very short order, it's going to be 1,000 degrees on this planet. And that's it. You can't live underground. There's no atmosphere. There's nothing there. Everything's going to be evaporated. The majority of the universe has gone through that. So if you have advanced enough, you have blown the popsicle stand. You've left. So there must be trillions of planets and their civilizations flying around looking for something new. That's it. That's it. They're not leaving their planet to come here and check us out and go back. Well, some of them are because it's easy. I could, Yeah. But think about how many planets had to be evacuated. A
Yeah.
lot. A lot. Why is it such a crazy thought that ET is flying around in giant starships? I think that's the norm. It's not the exception.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really great point. I mean, the thing is about the Earth is that the Earth is remarkable in that, all the exoplanets that we start to look at, or even just like Venus and Mars that aren't that far away from us. And you see how kind of inhospitable they are. You get these planets that get, tidally locked, and like there's only one side faces the sun always, and it's just like always on fire. And the other side is just like always in
Frozen.
darkness. And
Yeah, yeah.
for us to
Frozen.
have a planet as cool as we have is pretty rare. And even then, there's a lot of evidence that just cyclically and over time that some really gnarly stuff happens that could very easily knock out entire civilizations. And so, if we wanted to continue to evolve on a long enough timeline, I think we do have to get off the planet. And that, once you're off of a planet, I think that the evolutionary pressure to become post biological is probably pretty intense, and that probably you would have to at a certain point, if you've got a body that was evolved to live on a planet, and on one planet in particular, once your whole species goes off world, the first thing you're going to be trying to figure out how to do, if you haven't done it already, is how do we shed these meat suits and get into something that's a little more durable for space travel. So I think intelligence is probably everywhere, and it probably looks very much different than us.
Well, I don't know, but if I was going to be a betting man, 1,000 years from now, we don't have these meat suits.
Yeah.
No, we are close to being immortal. And Jimmy, that's a crazy thought,
I
man.
don't
How
think
can
so.
you go there? No, 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 no. You know what everybody is trying to do right now, from Elon Musk to DARPA to Google and Apple, you name Israel, China, everybody's got the same goal right now. Transfer brain interface computer, upload us. And that's it. That's everybody want. And what's the advantage of that? Well, no sleep, no food, no cancer, right? None of that. And immortal. Immortal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, as soon as you're born, right? Oh, you're so cute, man. Straight up, plug in, done, into baby body. Right. That's and how else do we see a future? And I would say ET is all over that. Why would
Totally.
we expect anything different when these are our goals, right, Kelly?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And I think it's gonna happen faster than we think, don't you think? The way things, just how AI art and that sort of
Y-
thing has accelerated, and chat GPT and all that over the last few years. I mean, they're saying within what, like 5 years or something, people are gonna have one of those Elon robots in their house. And how long after that before we're uploading ourselves into one of those bad boys?
About a week.
Right?
About a week. Everybody's going to figure out a way to get that done. Yeah, I why would we travel for 10,000 years on a ship? Well, you could do it if you're uploading yourself. That's it. All of the things that confine and constrain a trip like that, enough food, enough oxygen, enough water, and that's all done. That's over with. You don't have to deal with that. It's not about cryogenic sleep, or these other caveman ways of trying to get around it. No, you would just upload yourself.
Yeah. It's scary. I
When
mean, I didn't think I was gonna see that in my lifetime, but now I'm like, I probably won't even be that old when it happens.
No, it's right there. It's right
Yeah.
there. It's right there. um when I hear, I haven't done this personally, not that I know of. But when I hear so many contactees talk about the robot ways of grays,
Right.
well, what would we expect? That's not the ramblings of a madman when you hear somebody talk about this stuff. That makes perfect sense. That's why not? Even if it's a biologically bred and created container, but you would upload, you know what I mean? That
Mhm.
just makes sense to me. Perfect sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me too, and I think about, I think it's Gary Nolan who likes to use the example of, if you were trying to communicate with the ant colony in your backyard, like, how would you do that? And I think one of the first things that you would have to do is you would have to create something that looked kind of like an ant, but enough so that it would know that it could communicate with it and that it would recognize it, but enough not like an ant that it would be like, you're not an ant, And like, what is a gray if not something that looks enough like us that we understand that you know what I mean? But enough like us that we know that it's not human. And I wonder about that all the time. If whatever's behind the grays might be something that we would not recognize as something that we could communicate with or interface with because they're just so weird or different.
Not so fast there. I think, okay. Do you have a Roomba?
No, but I'm
Do you?
familiar.
Okay. What better example does anybody need?
Mm.
You can go buy them at Best Buy,
Right.
right? These things are that far away from being sentient, that far. And I wouldn't doubt it that at some point you could upload, because those things are frigging Android operating systems, right? You'll be able to Google that stuff, right? upload any personality you want to into it. So yeah, we're pretty close. Michio Kaku on this show said that DARPA already has uploaded consciousness and dreams
Oof.
out of humans. Yeah. Yeah. And he
Yikes.
didn't say theoretically it's possible and they're looking at it. He said, no, it's done. Yeah. Yeah. It's a crazy thought. And I've seen Black Mirror, and that show scares the crap out of me. But Black Mirror is set in the not so distant future, right? Like next year, most of it. And that's the scary part about that show because our technology, Kelly, is there today. And we're wondering where ET is and how advanced they are. Well, just take a look at us and what we
Yeah.
are doing and our ability to do what we do. And we are still cavemen, of the universe. But if we are there now, where are we going to be in 10 years? Literally in 10
Right.
years.
Are you gonna take a robot body when it becomes available?
I've thought about it a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I've thought about it a lot. Yeah. I almost have zero issues with it. I have zero issues. Here's how would it be done? How would it be done? Okay. So here's me being uploaded onto a chip that will be installed into a robot, right? Okay. And then that process completes. Now there's two me's at the same time. Wait a minute here. Two me's making decisions? Is the new me aware? Are we having the same thoughts?
Mhm.
Is that new me looking out through my eyes right now? What if they make a different decision than me? Okay, that's all philosophical issues, right? Okay. Do I have to die now?
Maybe.
What happens to this body? Can there be two me's at the same time? Sentient, conscious, driven, right? Or the upload is complete, and then zap, I get zapped, and this is over. What if there's a mistake and this is gone and I can't come back? What if there's a glitch in the upload? There's all these things. But if they work out the issues, and okay, so that's if they
So you don't want to be the first one.
Well,
you don't want to be the first guy.
Totally. And that, okay, I'm okay with the copy and paste. Okay?
Mhm.
Copy and paste. But what if it's a download where your brain has to empty as the new one fills up? Think about that. So now you get past the halfway point. And now this me is like, you're getting into dumb zone, and then you're losing your memory, and then this fades to black. This fades away, and then the new one suddenly hits 100%, bing, and it's all done. And then I'm a body without a brain, a memory.
Oh.
These are deep philosophical, existential questions that we have to ask about all of this and what the process is. Do you think, let me ask you this before we hit the break. If that happens, does our soul transfer? Does Kelly Chase transfer? Or is it just your memories?
That's my fear, is that I'm not convinced your soul would transfer. And I do believe in a soul. Not everyone does. I do. And I don't know. I might become like the new Amish. They stopped at zippers. I might stop at robot bodies.
Here's the thing. Here's my Pandora's box. The new me likes Brussels sprouts. That would just suck. That would just blow. I mean, my new me likes Chevys.
Oh,
instead
no.
of Fords. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is. It's just like some crazy, I know every Shania Twain song. Or, she's the big rock star, right? That's her?
Yeah, she's a country star. She's awesome.
Yeah. Who's the one that is dating the Kansas City Chiefs dude?
Oh, Taylor Swift. Yeah.
Yeah. What? The new me likes Taylor Swift.
I'd pay to see that, Jimmy, but
Hi, my name's Jimmy and I'm a Swiftie. I like Shania Twain. So yeah, I couldn't tell you one Taylor Swift song though. I couldn't do it.
That's
all
how
right.
we'll know if they switch you out.
Yeah, let's take our break. Our guest tonight, the one and only Kelly Chase, is with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. When we come back, we're going to discuss her new docuseries. It is called Cosmosis. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Today we're headed to Bolivia, Tiwanaku, Peru, and of course, Pumapunku. Brian, exciting. Thank you so much for everything, my friend.
Always an honor. Right behind us is the sacred river of the Inca that goes past Machu Picchu. So we're going to be driving up to its source at 15,000 feet above sea level and then down to Lake Titicaca.
So today we hit 15,000 feet.
Yes.
Crazy. And you can do it with us. All you have to do is go to hiddenincatours.com. Simple. We've got 2 tours coming up next year, one in June for the summer solstice,
That's
right? And then another one right here in November. So hiddenincatours.com. Come and hang out with Brian and I and his amazing team.
Right on.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Kelly Chase is with us. That's right. Right now, she's the voice of our community, and it's just great to finally have her on the show. And Kelly, we can't wait, 6 years to have you back on the show. I don't know why we waited so long, but welcome and great conversation so far. Let's talk about Cosmosis because I want to know where the ideas came from to approach it the way that you have. But the other thing, and we talked about this before the show, there's a lot of content out there today, a lot of great content and stuff that is visually just spot on and so well done. You have created something that is all of that and more. Did you approach it that way, that we need to have the best here? Did you look at it that way? Content is one thing, but you got to have the production value. How did you approach it?
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, yeah, so right around the time right before the David Grush hearing, like right after that article had come out, there were kind of a bunch of people that I knew kind of casually through the community. And Jordan Flowers, who's now one of my business partners, invited a bunch of us out to his place in Connecticut. Just a bunch of people who wanted to figure out work that we could do, just realizing that there was going to be kind of this rising tide of people who were interested in this subject and just trying to figure out what we could do. And after that weekend of brainstorming, me and Jordan Flowers and J. Christopher King, who's the director of the Experiencer Group, decided that we wanted to work on something together. So Jordan's got a business background. I've got a writing and marketing background. And Jay, on top of being the director of the Experiencer Group, also went to film school, and he spent, 10, 15 years in the television industry before kind of quitting and to do work more in this field. And he worked with Richard Dolan for a while and that sort of thing before starting the Experiencer Group. And this was kind of his opportunity to get back to television. we really wanted to, the thing that like brought us together is that we wanted to create something, with this recognition that there's so much great content being made in the field by so many, incredibly talented people. We wanted to make something, though, that filled a vacuum that we saw, which is that because although there's so many more people coming to the field, there's still so many more people who don't know about this topic, or it's just barely on their radar, that so much of the content that's getting made and like the television shows and the documentaries and that sort of thing, almost all of them are kind of in this zone of having to make the case that UFOs are something we should even be talking about in the first place. And like, listen, that fight is ongoing. I think that's still a case that we need to be making. But there's also this growing community of people and of people who've existed, as you know, for decades and decades, who've been ready to have a deeper conversation about this stuff for a long time. And so we wanted to make something that started with the premise of UFOs are real. And so, what does that mean? What does that mean about the nature of our reality and who we are, and what our interactions with them are? What we wanted something that actually dove into not just they're here, but who could they be? Like what diving into those different theories about their origins, different models for understanding, you know, contact and experiencers. And we really wanted to make it human centered. Like so much of what's out there is very kind of built around the headlines and about around disclosure. And we wanted to make something that was human first and human centered and that focused on the contact experiences themselves, not just kind of the nuts and bolts of it. And have kind of a more human conversation that wasn't entirely framed through disclosure and the military industrial complex. Um, and we knew that it was going to have to be good. And so we were really lucky that Jay is an extraordinarily talented director. This is kind of like the first television show he's ever directed. And I think he knocked it absolutely out of the park. And we had some incredible artists and animators and musicians and composers and, you name it, who worked with us on this just because they believed in the project. And so we're really, really proud of it. And you can get it if people are looking for it on Amazon, Apple TV, Fandango at Home. There's kind of all sorts of places that you can find it at cosmosis.media, and then you can find all the different platforms there.
Yeah, we have the links right there for everybody. So then, because that's a broad stroke of the pen, what you just presented there.
Yeah.
What did you focus on first? Did you try to tackle consciousness?
So the way we kind of broke it down is the first episode is actually called the UFO Rabbit Hole. And that was really just kind of laying out the basic case of, UFOs are here and who could they be? We broke down all of the different hypotheses and, brought in people like Mike Masters to talk about, the extraterrestrial hypothesis and all of that. I think for people who have been in this community for a long time, there's not a ton there that's going to be like blowing your hair back and you've never heard this before. But what I hope is that if you see it, you'll say, this is the best I've seen this done. And so, that was what we were trying to do with that. And we really tried to, by the end of the episode, blow it wide open and make the case that this isn't just about craft or aliens, that like there's something deeper going on here that's related to all kinds of different anomalous phenomena, from poltergeist to the dead and everything in between. And then in episode 2 we dove into the secrecy, because I really think that in a lot of ways some of the most concrete evidence that we have for the existence of this phenomenon is the secrecy around it. And so we wanted to approach that from a different angle. We wanted to, instead of just like telling the same old story of the government cover up, we wanted to talk about the human impacts of that cover up, like what it really does to people. Mario Woods is one of the experiencers that we worked with for this. And, he does a really beautiful job talking about the aftermath of his encounter in 1977. And we also wanted to make the case that like whatever this secrecy is about, it's not just about UFOs, that it has something to do with who we are. It has something to do with human potential. And so that was really kind of where we dove in with episode 2 with the secrecy. And then episode 3 is just all about the experience itself. It's, that's where we get into valet and the 6-layer model and looking at this kind of holistically as not just, getting into the deep end with the actual experience of it, what it does to people, how it changes them, how it differs from what we're shown in the media. Yeah. And so we tried to just go as deep as we could in an hour, basically with that one. So it's just 3 episodes, a little 3-episode arc, but we're already working on season 2.
The the types of contact experiences, sightings, direct contact, is so varied and so wide. And I think that should be expected. So many that are skeptics or even debunkers, it depends on how you want to label and classify them, but um, expect everybody to have seen or experienced the exact same thing and that this repeats over and over again. And I don't think that is the case. It's the case with some ET for sure. They're visiting, they've been here for a long time, for sure. But I would say the vast majority of sightings and contact experiences are ET species that are only going to be here once. Drive by, and then they're off to the next star system to check out the planets there. And so why not? Why not different types of craft, different types of interdimensional experiences, different kinds of species and descriptions, and the experiences would be similar but different. And I think that is something that really needs to be examined. It can't be just one single type of ET visiting this planet, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that just the full spectrum of what these experiences look like is something that, talk as we were talking about before, in some ways, disclosure has really kind of narrowed the conversation that's being had in the space. I think in a lot of ways, if you go back even just a couple of decades, even in the 90s or definitely before that, back in the 60s, 70s, we were having deeper conversations about what this actually is. Like it's gotten so narrow to like we're talking about biologics, but we can't say what those biologics are for or what they're attached to. It's just like everything's been so like brought down to the smallest piece of data. But if you go back, like the stories are all so weird and there's so much variety and there's so much weird stuff going on. And yeah, there are entities like the Greys that a lot of people see repeatedly, but there's also these like bizarre one-offs, like the Flatwoods monster comes to mind, or like all kinds of strange, weird things that look like they're maybe in some kind of a spacesuit that are maybe kind of humanoid or maybe not. The variants of the different crafts that people have reported and what they looked like. It definitely doesn't fit all into one tiny little box. It gets really complicated as well. You're having Greg Hernandez on this week, and I think his study does an amazing job of kind of breaking down the crazy variety of things that people see.
Well, you remember in the movie Arrival, and when Amy Adams, and I think that movie is closer to the mark than most of us really want to admit.
Yeah.
But anyway, when she goes up to the glass the first time she sees the aliens, I don't know what to. I saw it in the theater, man. It was popcorn, man. I was like, oh man, here we go. And they turned out to be cephalopods, octopi. Yeah. Right? We didn't get some crazy stereotypical situation. It was totally, how do I say this? Abnormal. It's not what we expected. And I thought that's really pretty close to the mark right there. Yeah. And if some whistleblower or some witness came out and said, yeah, it was an octopus, we would go, oh, what? We want to hear about the alien Greys with the big eyes and the slit mouth, right? The little dude that floated through your bedroom wall. And not to say that doesn't take away from it, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Why not something different? Like the way it was presented in Arrival.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's just harder for us to imagine what something like that is even like, right? Like, at least if it looks somewhat humanoid, it's easier for us to relate to. And I feel like the stranger something is, like, you can see it on people too. And you tell somebody a story, like, everybody has this different place where their line is drawn. And then there's some stuff that's just too weird for all of us. But like, when you cross that line of weirdness with somebody, it just like, zoop, it just goes like right over their head. And they just kind of, and I wonder if, I feel like there's something psychological about it that keeps us from considering or remembering or thinking about the stuff that's just so far outside of our frame of reference that we're just like, my brain's not even gonna engage with that.
Right, right, right. Out of the hundreds of sightings that I've had, and extraordinary, some of them just mind blowing, but no two were the same.
Mm.
None, none, none. And I'll give you an example of something crazy. I don't talk about this often. I'm out on my back patio, got my night vision, and it's like after the show, and it was pretty close to midnight. I've been out there for a couple hours having fun, and this is what happens. Now, it was fast, and this is not made up. Okay, this is exactly what. So from the north, now I'm facing east. Okay, I'm on my upstairs patio, and I happen to turn my chair for some reason, and I'm facing north. Without the night vision, this is what happens. From the horizon, this white ball of light comes up. It lasted about a second and a half, and it does this. It comes up, goes over my head, around planet Earth, and disappears over the horizon and back of me. Lasted about a second and a half. It looked like it was outside of planet Earth, outside of, or it was out there. But for it to do what it did, it was hauling ass. Okay, I have no idea how many hundreds of thousands of miles per hour this thing was going, but it went over planet Earth and disappeared. And I went, wow, holy crap. Right as I said that, it happened again.
Wow.
Right over. I jump up, I look at my phone, I run in the house, and I emailed Avi Loeb. I said, dude, this just happened at such and such a time. Something out there, telescopes, satellites, track this thing. And it went from the north to the south, like 10 seconds apart, two different ships. That's what they were. They weren't meteors, or there was two of them, two back to back, following each other, same exact spot. And I said, so check all of your data, check all the observatories around the world, and get back to me. He wrote me the next morning and said, nobody saw anything. So then I called him. I said, that's impossible, Avi. That's impossible. This thing had to have been tracked by everything, and there was two of them. No, nobody, nothing. I've got nothing, Jimmy. And now that was so out of the norm. This isn't some light in the sky zigzagging around, or, which I love. This went horizon to horizon. It was crazy.
That is crazy.
And nothing. I thought that Avi was going to come back and go, we tracked it on 15 telescopes around the world, radio telescopes. Everybody followed that thing. All of the satellites, we got the data. It's incredible. It was like Oumuamua, but on steroids, and nothing. I was arguing with him. Bullshit, Avi. I was like, there's no way that this wasn't tracked. He said, well, nothing. And he made phone calls.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I just think that's an example. Something like that could be the big D.
Hmm.
You know, that would force the government's hand.
Yeah, you have to wonder, if that's what they're afraid of. At the first Seoul conference, Carl Nell did a whole talk about this where he kind of laid out what controlled disclosure would look like, and he was talking about why the DoD was even entertaining this, and one of the major risk factors that he was talking about with catastrophic disclosure that suddenly became like the buzzword, all over the internet was the very real fear. And I think that this makes sense. I don't think this is outrageous. The idea that that they could reveal themselves to us, that could be the thing that they're afraid of, or that they're hedging against, because if they decided to reveal themselves in some sort of mass sighting or something like that, that would be something that the government couldn't deny. If something just showed up over a bunch of major cities around the world, cat's out of the bag. And maybe they're genuinely afraid that might happen.
If ET is as advanced as they should be, okay, all right, let's just put that there.
Hmm.
Then is it possible that they are just like Wi-Fi, right? They're Wi-Fiing us, where they are sending this information to us in mass, and that is altering people's realities and their perception of what they are seeing, because it's just as real as anything else. But we wouldn't understand ET's technology and why millions and millions, if not billions, of people on this planet are having the exact same type of contact experiences.
Yeah, I think that could make a lot of sense. And maybe I don't know what to make of all this new stuff with like the psionic assets and people calling in and vectoring in ships or whatever. I mean, I know CE5 has been a thing for a long time. I don't doubt that that's a skill that certain people have, but this idea that they can just get a ship to land is wild to me. I don't know what I think about it, especially because but if you entertain it, if you just say yes, they're telling the truth and this is something that they're doing, have those ships just been out there? Have they just been
We just talked about quantum computers,
right?
right? Right.
Right.
And now, would ET alter our reality so we can be better assisted in accepting them?
Maybe it's something like you can ask valet tomorrow. Maybe it's something like the control mechanism or something like that, where maybe maybe disclosure is coming from someone way above the pay grade of the government. Maybe they're setting it up.
And the idea of there's two things here that I find very, very interesting about this community. One is channeling, right?
Mhm.
I think that is just it seems like entanglement to me, right?
Yeah.
We have that, and then we have the abduction experiences, which also, falls into the hybrid program. Now, for people to talk about this, I don't think it's some deep-seated psychosis, mass psychosis, that there must be something going on. So let's start with abductions. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think we talk about them enough. When I talk about how in some ways, we were a lot further along decades ago in terms of the public conversation, at least, abductions is a big part of that. When I came into this, I know that it was a really hard thing for me to personally accept, but I wasn't just persuaded by, obviously I've read Mac, obviously I've read, Bud Hopkins, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Whitley. I guest host on his show once a month. But I actually have a bunch of close friends now that are abductees, and people getting to know them as real people and spending time with them and traveling with them and staying up late talking to them. and just recognizing that like these people are not crazy, and they're not lying, and they're not after anything, and they're not emotionally manipulative people, and they're not liars. They're just none of those things. And it shook my world because I had to be like, oh, this is real and it's happening to people. And the trauma that it creates in people's lives, and what they deal with as a result of it, and the stigma and everything else, like it's really kind of harrowing to have people in your life that you're close to who have gone through this. And yeah, I believe them. I believe that it's real. And it changed me to recognize that, and it humbled me also to realize how wrong I was about something, because it was too weird, and I just didn't want to deal with it.
Do you know Debbie Cobble?
I know the name, but I don't know her.
Debbie Cobble is the subject in Bud Hopkins' book Intruders. Okay, that book is about her. And here is the crazy thing about Debbie. She is 100% the cool mom on the street that's going to invite you over for the best meatloaf you've ever had. She's just like, just cool, right? We went to the same high school.
Oh, wow.
We grew up in the same neighborhood, right? And her abduction experience happened in my neighborhood. And it's just an unbelievable. So talking about getting to know somebody, this is, my high school, this is it. And when you sit next to her, like I have, and she was in a movie that I produced, when you sit and you look into her eyes and you listen to her, first off, just listen to her to tell you her chicken casserole recipe, right? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
She's just as normal and just like anybody else, but she has this experience. And when she talks about that, you're looking into her eyes. It's the same lady that's giving you her secret chicken casserole recipe. And that experience is real. I don't know how much more to express it than that. But where did these abductions go? And why did they stop? Or are they continuing, but they're happening in a different way? I think that's a huge question that we all have. It seems like we haven't had a Travis Walton, Betty Hill, or a Debbie Cobble, Bud Hopkins story in quite a while. And then what do we have? The hybrids and the
Mhm.
hybrid program and those people coming forward. That's the same as an abduction experience, just in another costume, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think hybrids are like, this is something I've been talking about a lot recently. I think the hybridization program, like we don't talk about that nearly enough in this community. Like I think that um especially in the last few years with kind of the disclosure narrative taking hold, that suddenly that's something like we just can't even talk about it. But the evidence for well, I'll say this. There are so many people who report having a very, very similar experience of having sexual material harvested, of seeing hybrids of the children, and all of these things. And that is got to be a big part of the story, right? Like that has to be important. And the fact that, like you said, I hear debate, and I can't weigh in on it. I'm not an abductee about whether or not abductions have stopped or not. Certainly, they seem to have drastically slowed down. But to have this strange, like it seems like contact has probably been going on kind of always, but the abduction phenomena was a very specific thing that happened for a very specific set of time, and then
Mhm.
seemed to have like died off. And so many of those people were reporting things that seemed like some sort of a hybridization program. And that feels like important information we should probably be paying more attention to, right?
Well, okay. How does Congress handle that?
Oh,
Right, right.
yeah.
Does Debbie Cobble go up in front of Congress and take an oath and
Yeah.
then share her abduction experience. It seems that because I absolutely think that should happen 100%. But the members up there, all of those elected officials asked some really good questions. I was really into it. Most of the hearings were that way, where I was just on the edge of my seat. But I think even for them, that they would go, okay, you know what? Crash flying saucers is one thing, and you had me there, but abductions and anal probes, I can't, I can't, you know what I mean? I think that's
Yeah.
almost like a bridge too far for them. Not for us in this community.
Right.
We literally have experiencer groups, and they are packed,
Mhm.
packed. That's different. But for the public at large and Congress, is it a bridge too far?
I mean, I think it's horrible to say it because those people need help and they need to be validated and what's happened to them is terrible. But I do think that it's probably a bridge too far, and I say that because like I was somebody who came into it in a way that I thought was very open-minded. But if I'm being really honest, it wasn't the literature or the books or any of the case history that convinced me. It was the human connections. It was really meeting people who had gone through this and saying, this person is not crazy. I have spent a long, consistent amount of time with this person. They are a person of character. They are not an insane person. They are an honest person. Like that was what got me there. And so we're in this weird catch 22 because how do we give that kind of personal experience to enough people that it begins to shift people's understanding of this? Like
Well,
it's tough.
the problem with it, not with our community, but for the rest of the world, evidence.
Yeah.
Because all you've got is the experience. You're sharing an experience. But what do you have to go with it? That's and I totally get that.
Yeah.
If you want the science community or whatever to get behind you on something like this, they need something more to study than your story.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. It's and it's so unfortunate. How many of these experiences came from regression?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
I was regressed. I was regressed. I didn't know what was going to happen, Kelly, in this
Mhm.
regression. What did happen, and now I remember it all in detail, was this 5-second experience that I didn't know about. I didn't know. And I was on a craft. Yeah. And I know it sounds crazy. I was on the craft for 5 seconds. I looked around the craft like this and then went back, was acknowledged by the ETs that were there. And then boop, I was back on planet Earth. Now, is that crazy? Yeah. Sounds like bullshit, but it's my experience.
Mhm.
And that came from regression. I didn't know this before the regression. Does the fact that the memory came from therapy, that it is invalidated? I don't know. I see it now though. That memory is like unlocked.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool that you did that. I've thought at some point I'll do it. At some point I'll also do it just because
Do you
um
want to know? Do you want to know?
I actually don't. But
I
I but
didn't. I didn't want to know,
I
man.
don't
I
feel
didn't
like I
want.
want to know, but I want to understand what the experience of regression is, right? Because I think I feel like when I have these conversations, it's really hard for me because there's a lot of people who will say, like, anything that comes through regression is just bullshit, right? Like, you can manipulate people or you can put stuff into their brain. But to me, like you said, it's your experience. It's such a personal experience that if I have never done it, if I've never been regressed, how can I even begin to judge what that experience is? Because I don't understand. Like there's part of me just because I've never been hypnotized. It's like, I don't know if I could even be hypnotized, but probably, some guy in Vegas could have me clucking like a chicken on stage in 2
Oh,
seconds. You know what I mean?
if you're in the right hands, you'll be barking like a dog.
Right?
Yeah,
I
for
bet.
sure, for sure. But I didn't know either. And I did it for TV. I did it on camera
Oh,
with
you
multiple
did? I didn't
cameras.
know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Go watch my show Into the Vortex, and you can see the regression episode with Sarah Brusman Cosme, and
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's all there. So anyway, um, here's the crazy thing. I didn't know. And I've got cameras, multiple, and people. I didn't know. I swear to you, I was under the feeling was like, you ever roll down a hill as a kid?
Mhm.
That's what it felt like. Pop, 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 right? I'm tumbling, falling face first, just like Alice in Wonderland. It
Mm.
was like that. And I was gone in seconds. In seconds, I didn't even know I was hypnotized. That was like that. It was crazy. It was crazy. I didn't know it was possible. And the other part is I don't know if I do it again.
Mm.
I don't. It was exhausting mentally unpacking that for so long after that, just thinking about uh not only what was said, but that the reality of being able to access that part of your consciousness that you don't do normally scared me. And it was fascinating, but to do it again,
Yeah.
because I know I was exhausted when I came out of the studio. I was under for 1 hour and 11 minutes. Yeah, that was strange too, as well. 111, but I came out of the studio. I had to go to the bathroom, and I just tell everybody. We had a full production crew, everybody there on stage, and I said, "I'll be right back." And I walked out, and that hallway was like the fun house at a carnival. I had my hand on the wall.
Oh, man.
Yeah, yeah. And I went in the bathroom and water on the face and just had to I wasn't right. I wasn't right for like 24 hours.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Did you come away with any other impressions? Like, did you feel like maybe you had been abducted multiple times, or was it just a one time, or
Didn't go there. And
Yeah.
I haven't given that part much thought. I will say this, when this experience happened, I know where I was, right?
Mm.
So at that night, and so I was with a bunch of other people, and I asked them, I said, "Did you notice anything weird about me when that?" Because we had all seen this light stop right above us, this big golden ball, come across the sky and then stop above us, and we were all looking at it and talking about it, and it was amazing. It was really cool, and everybody that I talked to said we were looking up. So I don't know, and it was only for 5 seconds. So was I blanked out? For five? I don't know, but nobody was looking at me.
Huh.
Yeah, I
That's
wanted to.
that's fascinating. I wonder, an idea that I have sometimes that kind of freaks me out is like, what if we all get abducted at some point, or maybe a lot, like, often, and the people who identify as abductees are the people who, for whatever reason, have some sort of a, like, just genetically or something, are
Predisposed,
yeah, predisposed to, like, it's
right?
easier for them to remember, like, people who, like, don't go down under anesthesia very
Right.
easily, like, that sort of
Well,
thing.
and that's another fascinating aspect of this. That some people, this is a total conscious, wide awake, experience, just like going to the mall.
Mhm.
And that's fascinating because if I hadn't have done that session, I would have never known. So
Yeah.
how many out there are just like me? That don't know. And I had always said, I don't want to know. I don't want to unpack that. I like the way that I am. I wanted to ask you this though, on the same subject.
Mhm.
Have you had a sighting?
Yes. Yeah. So I had one when I was about 13. And that was
Oh,
actually what triggered all of this. So I
okay.
was
Well, tell me about it. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, so I was down at this is like my less exciting UFO story, but it's the one that triggered things. So I was 13 years old and I was at the Outer Banks in North Carolina with my family. And we had a house on the beach. And at night, I love to go outside, out onto the porch and like look up at the stars because like I always lived in the suburbs. I didn't, you go out there and you could see some stars. And so
Mm,
I would go
mm.
sit up and I on the porch and I'd look up at the stars. And I was just sitting out there by myself. And I suddenly had this thought that I'd never had before and I've never had since, which was it was very loud in my head. And it was like, if I look up right now, I'll see a UFO. And I looked
You were
up.
13 and you had that thought?
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking
Wow.
about UFOs. I'd never thought about UFOs. Like it wasn't
Wow.
a thing for
Wow.
me.
Very
And
cool.
and I looked straight up and I right above my head there was this white light and I was like, "Oh, it's just a plane." And as soon as I thought it's just a plane, it did two like really hard right angle turns and then just like whoosh, like over the horizon faster than anything I'd ever seen. And so I mean, it was just kind of a light in the sky, but it was doing things I couldn't explain, and I, like, ran inside and told my family, um, and they were like, "Oh, you're just smoking weed," and I'm like, "You guys thought I was smoking weed out there? Like like, what about weed?" And just so I never really thought about it, and because I don't know, it just kinda, like, went away, and it wasn't until, like, 2021 when we were going back out there, that's when I got really obsessed because I was like, "I'm gonna be out there for a week, and I'm gonna get to the bottom of this UFO thing," and I did not, but I did end up getting obsessed and quitting my job, so
And you said that was your first sighting
yes, and
and
then
and not the best, and that's a pretty good sighting. What else?
yeah, so I had a really cool one when I was right around probably 21 and it was at this park called Virginia Kendall. It's right outside of Akron, Ohio. It's just like this beautiful metro park and I was out there. It was the middle of the day. It was a sunny day. With a friend of mine and we were sitting on this hill that was overlooking this little lake that's there. Lake might be a strong word, probably more of like a pond. But the hill is pretty tall and it gets you up like almost as high as kind of the tree line around it. So we were up pretty high and we were just sitting there and out of nowhere, out of the sky came this it wasn't like when you see something approaching you from the distance, like it really came like out of the sky. Um Not that far in front of us, maybe a few hundred yards in front of us and then
Really?
probably only like maybe 50 to 100 feet above the tree line. So it wasn't that high, much higher than we were. This thing just came out of the sky. It just appeared. And almost like there was I couldn't see a hole in the sky, but it felt like it was coming out of something in the sky. But it didn't look like anything I'd ever seen before. It was so Akron, Ohio is the home of the Goodyear blimp. And so like
Yep.
that's something that I'm was very used to seeing in the sky and we kept asking each other we're like is that the blimp? Is that the blimp? But it was so close to us. We see the blimp all the time. It was broad daylight. It was not the blimp, but it was about that. The reason we kept asking ourselves that was because it was about that size, but it was more like cigar shaped and it was moving like the blimp in that it was just like kind of floating in that kind of way that the blimp moves across the sky. But what was really weird about it was that you could see it, but you couldn't see it. It was like it looked like a smudge or something in the sky that was like it was hard to even look at it. Like you could see that it had a shape, but then you're like, where's the edge? And you like couldn't quite find it. And it was kind of translucent. Like you could definitely kind of see the sky behind it. And it just sort of drifted across like above the trees for maybe like a minute and then it just sort of disappeared the way that it appeared into just like into the sky kind of. It just was just gone. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And I'd actually been doing this work for like over a year before I even was like, was that a UFO? Because it just was so different from
Right,
anything.
right.
It's so weird. Like, I didn't know what it was.
When I hear that and when I have those experiences and I think about, the sightings like that for so many that are just unexplainable, they don't know what they see. I think that the first thought that everybody thinks about is, why are we here?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be us? When you see that, because we're so used to things we can touch and feel and see and identify, and our brain doesn't have to trip out. The brain knows what it's seeing, and to see something that you can't explain, your brain goes into protection mode.
Mm-hmm.
It wants to protect you. And I get that. I totally get that. But then that's when that happens, what is it? What's the meaning of it all? What's the meaning of life? That's the paradigm shift, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it's weird how your brain just refuses to deal with certain things. Because the fact that it took me so long to even think about that could be a that it could be a UFO. And I haven't talked to that friend in years. I should probably like call him up at some point and like be like, hey, do you remember that? Because I definitely have always remembered it. I never forgot it, but I just didn't think about it very often. And it's weird how, like, in the moment, we were like, what is that? What is that? And we were freaking out. But then we just kind of like kept hanging out after that. And then we went back, like, drove back into the city and, like, I think went to dinner or something. And, like, we just never, I know that we never talked about it again after that day. And it's just like, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing you would just forget or move on from. But as soon as it was gone, we were just sort of like, well, and we just sort of moved on with our lives.
I think about that so much, where I'm with a group of people, and it could be a large group, could be a small group, but other people, and we all see the same thing, right? Okay, and we
Mhm.
go through this experience together. I know how I deal with it and how special it is to me, but how has it changed somebody else's life? How are they doing today? I wish I could just reach out. And so many times, Kelly, I have brought up these mass sighting events on the show. And usually, I mean, like every time, there'll be somebody in the chat or multiple people in the chat that were there that
Ah.
can back up my bullshit, right? But I see their excitement is still there in the chat. It was crazy, right? It was nuts. I was there. He's not hyping it up enough. It was crazier than that. Yeah, I often wonder, do they take it with them? Is it as life changing as it was for me?
I think then sometimes it just isn't, because I think about the
Mm,
fact that,
right,
like,
right.
that I had 2 pretty crazy UFO sightings, and it wasn't until I was in my, like, late 30s that I was even like, "I wonder if UFOs are real." Like, I never, I would entertain it. I would, like I told you, like, I used to listen to Coast to Coast in, like, high school and college and stuff, like, but I wasn't, even though I'd seen something twice, there was no part of me at that point of my life that was really thinking like, "Well, what did I actually see?" Because it's so much easier, I think, to just doubt yourself or to be like, "Well, I must have just somehow I was mistaken, or that wasn't what I thought it was," or I don't know, because that changes, because then you have to, like, ask yourself the questions you're talking about. You have to ask yourself, like, "Who are we and what the heck are we doing here and what's going on?" And I just wasn't there. And I think a lot of people never get there. Life is busy. You got bills to pay, you got kids to take care of, there's all kinds of stuff that to think about that, I don't know why it strikes some of us and some of us get pulled in. I don't know why it didn't pull me in back then, but it did, you know, decades
Are we
later.
in danger? This will be the last question. And before I ask, amazing conversation tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so fun.
Um, do you think that we will get to the point of oversaturation and there won't be any more reactions to UFOs? That UFOs will become the norm? where the shock value is just taken away from it. I would actually, that would be a good place to be. But do you think that we are getting to that point now where it's an accepted reality? Like you said, you approached Cosmosis that way,
Mhm.
right? Okay. Well, no, we don't need to discuss if, right? They are here. Do you think that the rest of the world is at the point of making this normal?
I hope so. I think we're closer than we think. Like we were talking about with like robot bodies and that kind of stuff. I think that this stuff culturally snowballs, and it seems as though we're definitely approaching a tipping point. I mean, even look what was going on with all that, New Jersey drone stuff. It's still unclear what that was, or if it was human or non-human, or what, some combination. But do you see like how quickly that news cycle, people just got bored of it and we're just like, we don't care
In
anymore.
and out, in
It
and
only
out.
took a couple weeks.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a Pandora's box though. Where we have a big sighting, something over Los Angeles, and nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
And that's the part that scares me. I often make a metaphor of, imagine we have the 405 freeway here in Southern California. It's the busy 405 and the 101, the busiest, I believe, the busiest intersection in the world for highways. And it's pretty crazy at rush hour. But so it's 5 p.m., 405 and the 101, right? And a UFO flying saucer lands on the freeway, blocks traffic. Okay. This is how that'll play out. You're going to have 10 minutes of live streaming, right?
Yeah.
People getting out of their cars and getting that onto Instagram and Facebook. Maybe even Twitter. It's called X now, but nobody gives a shit. But okay, so you're going to have that. And but after 10 minutes, you're going to have honking horns. Get that thing off the freeway. I got to get home. That's what scares me, because I think we're close to that kind of reality right now.
I think that's 100% accurate. I agree with you. And yeah, it's really interesting to see. It's really going to be really interesting to see where this all goes in the next few years, because it does feel like we're getting to that point where people are starting to pay more attention to it, and then they're starting to see more. And then, but at what point do we just get bored and go back to our lives? And I hope we don't do that, but I think you're
Well,
right.
Every year we do the same thing. Is this the year? I can feel it. This is the year. This is, man, we are there. Well, it's already March 2025, and I don't want to get to December this year and go, well, we were close.
Yeah.
2026 is the year. We're so close.
Yeah.
We're so close to at least, we don't have to understand the phenomenon. We just need to be told that we're not alone in the universe. We can figure everything else out later, but I just want to get to that point in the conversation, and I want to do it sooner than later.
I hope so. I hear you on that. I'm tired of it being the year, and I haven't been doing this nearly as long as you have. You've got to be real over it.
Jaded is the right word. Well, I have people ask me all the time. I'm sure you can appreciate this. Okay, Jimmy, so what's going on? What's the secret? What do you know? What have you found out? And you would think that from my position with my contacts and all of the interviews and all of the things and the conversations, private and public, that I have had, that I would be closer to the answer. And I'm not. I know a lot of things for sure. Yes. I'm different now than when I came into this. I'm different. I have more questions. The only thing that keeps me from going crazy is science. And science is helping me understand how vast the universe is and how much life is out there, that I'm not crazy, that I'm not seeing things, that I'm not imagining things, that the reality itself is real. Who it is and what it is, I don't have those answers. Maybe I do, and I'm not telling you. But yeah. Every little question has 1,000 questions off of it.
Yeah.
And every one of those 1,000 questions has 1,000 more. And that's where I'm at. So there you go. I think the secret, though, I'll leave you with this. We're going to be off the network in 20 seconds. ET is going to tell us it's all about consciousness. I think that's our next stage in evolution, Kelly. Where can everybody reach out and check out your stuff?
Cosmosis.media is the easiest place to find the podcast, the show, and everything else.
You're the best, Kelly. All right. I look forward to our next conversation. Keep doing what you're doing. Okay. We love you. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect show. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Kelly Chase. I just take myself out? I did. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. I want to remind everybody tomorrow night, right here, Jacques Vallée. But for now, all I've got is Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Tappy.